Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Donspektor here, today with another review, and I have for you Samsung's no longer latest but still greatest true wireless experience, the Galaxy Buds Pro. And yes, as one of the few true wireless buds that are recommended by Crinical, I want to say today we will find out if Crin's assessment of the situation is correct and what the Galaxy Buds can or can't. Because I know Crin actually has a pretty good standing, but some of the times he really just is focused on sound and forgets important things like, well, does the IM even fit in people's ear? I mean, it's absolutely detailed, like everybody can overlook, right? So yeah, let's see if these might fit in here or not. And as usual, I'll be starting with a quick packaging, accessories combined with unboxing. So that's the box, there's nothing to it, you just open it. It's pretty small, as you can see, it fits in my medium largish hands totally without any problems. Just lift it up. You do get the pouch with manual and stuff. That's pretty boring, you don't care about those. Then you get a small accessory package, which I'll be quickly opening. So here are the tips. Here would be the cable, which is just a random ass USB cable, really nothing special. It looks like any other cheapo USB cable you will find wherever you are. So it's just cable. And let's take a quick look at what tips you get. Yes, this is all cardboard, so pretty easy to recycle. So at least Samsung does get brownie points there. And you get S, L, and on the buds themselves is M. Let's just move that over the side. We talk about those later on when we talk about comfort. And then last but not least, you get the buds themselves in their charging case. Whoop. Yep. Let me just open it. Buds, charging case. And that's basically it. It's small, it's compact. Yeah, it's true wireless earbuds, alright? There's nothing special about the packaging and accessories here. Totally okay, but really not mind-blowing, especially for the original pricing of 220 euros or something what they charged originally. So yeah. Okay, so after we talked about packaging and accessories, let's talk about the IEM build. And yep, let me just open the bad boy. Yep, this is the buds. I'm not sure what this color is called because the other ones were just boring. So I choose this one. And as you can see, the back is really shiny. Like you can see it mirroring my face here. Even if I wave here, hi people, you can even see the hand in there. So really, really shiny stuff. And yeah, there's a microphone here or whatever, maybe multiple microphones, I don't know. There's another hole here on this side. Then you have another one here. These are the charging contacts. I think these are infrared sensors to know whether you have them in your ear. There's an L printing on the inside. On the other side, of course, would be R. And yeah, when we just remove the tip, let's take a look at the grill. The grill is made out of, I think, solid, not solid aluminum, but with really small holes. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There's not much more to see here. It's a true wireless, but there's nothing special about it. However, when we talk about the general kind of how thick or how thin the seams are, that is really good. You can't see any seam here. It's really doesn't look like one piece, but it's really, really thin. And even if you look at the front, at the mesh grill here, it also looks really well put into place, which kind of makes sense because this is an IPX7 water resistant. So it's pretty much up there. Yeah, just walking through rain should be absolutely no problem with those things. I think IPX7 even says you could probably wear it while water activities. I still would not do it though, but I think IPX7 does say that. I have not looked up the IPX standard in last time, so take that with a grain of salt. But definitely it's water resistant, so that's a nice thing. And yeah, generally if you even look at the contacts and the infrared here, this is all put well into place. There's barely any seam to speak of around, and generally how this is made, it feels okay. It's really not really light, but it's light and it doesn't feel cheap. I mean, yeah, it's thin plastic, and not sure if you can already see, just from wearing it I think 2 months or so, you can see the decoloration going on the nozzle here compared to the rest of the bud. So that ain't great for the original asking price. And generally also like this stuff here, it collects fingerprints, is crazy, and it also scratches easily. So not easily, but it scratches like it's just random plastic. It's not like aluminium that you get, for example, at cheaper normal things like the Tin T2 Plus here. Like this, like it's pretty difficult to scratch and also pretty like, yeah, durable. This does feel definitely cheaper than those, but again, this is all metal and it's definitely heavier overall than what you get here. So yeah, I think overall this has a pretty like decent, let's say it has a good build quality on true wireless buds, and I see no big weak spots here. Other like TWS I had, like where I said, okay, like some of the gaps are not that great. This doesn't have that. Overall, it feels like well made. It's just not great. It's just because the general plastic we're using with decoloration here. I mean, yeah, for like 120 euros at the moment, I have no complaints. Like this is totally solid. Like 220 would be pretty hard sell for me at least, but 120 absolutely no complaints. I would describe it as good build quality for the price. Okay, then next chapter. Let's come to the most important chapter of any IEM. It's even more important than sound, and at least for true wireless at this point, because yeah, there's nothing to secure them besides the comfort and the fit in your ear. And yeah, again, I will be taking like pictures where you can see the dimensions of these parts better. I will throw them on like somewhere in the course of the comfort section, so you can just see how big they are in real life, so you can get a better feeling of how well they will fit in your ear. So, first problem. This shape is not mega ergonomic. It's not terrible, but you can just see by the way this is like generally shaped, it's just really thick when going into your ear canal. So, first problem we get here. If your outer ear is a bit smaller, these will absolutely not fit you. Second problem is, well, the nozzle is extremely short. And third problem, the general shell footprint here is on the bigger side. So, putting those three together, there's a really good chance that these things will not fit your ear that well. Yeah, I know, like some people say it's pretty comfortable if you get it to wear, because generally, yeah, the nozzle is, as you can see, oval, which is a pretty big advantage over other thick nozzled IEMs that have a round nozzle. For example, like completely different, right? But Variations has like 6.4 millimeter diameter and it's round. That ain't great. This one at least has an oval nozzle, so that is pretty good. And now, when we talked about the problems that this can have, right, there's another big but. Whoop. You see this in the lip here, the additional like knobble in the nozzle here. What the fuck, Samsung? Like, why? You have a perfectly working IEM and then you add this additional proprietary, no benefit whatsoever thing. And that means you need a special pair of tips like this one. And yeah, it's pretty easy to put on. You just flop it on and it's on there. But these tips are not great. They are pretty squishy and soft. I give it to them, but there's another asinine decision with this bad nozzle design. It gets worse. It gets worse, people. You see this problem? We have a super short nozzle. And then they decide, oh, you know, short tips, well, they don't need length. We just have them in terms of length. Again, what the fuck, Samsung? Like, you have a nozzle that is literally just like 3 millimeters or 2 millimeters long, and then you throw on, tips that are extremely short in ass. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, how am I supposed to get this to fit in my ears properly? Like, look at my tip selection here. This tip is just random as silicone. I can't get it fit on there. Like, I can't get to fit any of those properly because of this damn thing here. It just doesn't fit. Even if I try to squeeze on some, wait, where are my XLR tags? Like, even if I try to force those on here, I can get them to somewhat fit, but you see how awkward it still looks. And yeah, like, you can see how easy it's removable. Like, this decision of Samsung is just horrible. Like, this thing here ruins every third-party tip on it. And then you still add the really short length of it. Well, even if I get my preferred spin fits on here, which is the CP360, well, this one is just too short if I get it forced on here. And if I manage to get it on, which, as you can see, is not that easy, it's just way too short. So normal spin fit might be working, but again, they just flop right off. So if you just put it out of here, they just go out. It's horrible design. Like, I can't get any of the tips to fit in here probably. And I just, with these tips, they're too big. They just force themselves out of my ear. These tips, too short. They just don't stay in my ear. So the only option I had is to somewhat be able to review them, because Samsung, in their generosity, decided to make this IEM one of the worst fitting true wireless spots for like small ear canals or like smallish ears. Like, really, this is horrible design. I cannot use, and like, this is shortened by like a third. So it's like 2/3 long, and that is a pair of Compli CP500, so like really thick diameter. You can see how thick it is on the inside. That you can get on, and it fits somewhat okay. Like, these actually fit my ear, and that's the only tip in like an assortment of at least 15 pair of tips will work for me that does fit with the buds here, and that fit my ear. Like, really, it's one of the few decisions where I said, like, Samsung, you fucked up. Like, who designed that? Who thought this is a good idea? Like, you don't even make money in selling those tips. Like, why do you do that? Like, what's the decision to just get it on easier? Like, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense in the world of audio. It's just, again, like, companies doing bullshit because they can. Like, it's horrible, and I hate it. Like, really, Samsung, no. Like, comfort, I can only recommend you not get the buds if you know you do need smaller ear tips, or if you know, okay, I need a bit more insertion. Like, just won't fit. Like, really, in terms of comfort, I cannot recommend you the buds whatsoever. They're just, Buds Pro, sorry, just not good. Not good at all. And then they even advertise it for sport. Well, no, like, just no. This will not fit in my ear for any sporty activity, even just walking. And even with the tips that fit me best, like, even with those, just walking, they just get shaken loose so easily. I just cannot recommend them whatsoever. Like, they don't really ever get that comfortable in my ear, and then they still fall out. Like, really, I have not had this problem with any other pair of IEMs that I had in the last years. And then Buds Pro come around, and Buds Pro are just like, nope, fuck you. I'm not staying in your ear. I'm being not really comfortable. Like, it's horrible, and I cannot recommend them. Sorry for the rant, but really, Samsung, you fucked up. Okay, so then, after this long rant about comfort and Samsung's asinine decisions with the Buds Pro, let's talk about isolation. And yeah, this is going to be a separate chapter from the ANC or the smart functionalities, which will be the next chapter. So really, this is just passive isolation, meaning you just put it in your ear, flop in, and you just leave it, and we talk about exactly how much it does there. And unfortunately, bad news continue here. The Buds Pro are really not good isolating. I would even go as far as to say they are bad isolating pair of true wireless buds. With the stock tips, and this is the only thing I can give them a comfort, like, these are definitely like squishy and comfortable if you somehow manage to find the right sizing, and for whatever miracle the short nozzle does work for you, then yeah, these could be comfortable. Not secure fitting, but comfortable. And that, however, as you can see here by the material, it's not that thick, and that means it also doesn't isolate well with those. Putting on foam tips here, flop it on, does improve a bit, but even with that, the housing is just not solid enough. And then you still have this like big mesh here, which also probably does deteriorate the passive isolation. So really, for just main roads or for city center or whatever, it's just not going to cut it. Like, really, without ANC, I cannot recommend these for traveling. So if you don't like ANC because for whatever reason it does create pressure for you, or you just don't like the feeling of it, like, these will just not work for traveling. Like, you really need to put on ANC to get it somewhat working for on the go. So yeah, passive isolation bad, ANC absolutely must have. And that then brings me to the next chapter, which is smart functionalities. Because yeah, this has ANC, but it also has a bunch of other things which we all need to talk about when we talk about a TWS, right? So I'll be starting with ANC. And yeah, it works all right. I had no problems with the ANC here. It did not have weird artifacts. It did not deteriorate the sound. It maybe made it a tad more dull, but that can also just be, I don't know, like a subjective feeling. So really, like, I did not have any problems with the ANC here whatsoever. It just worked. Like, it was okay. It was not great. It did do a good job in attenuating like really lower frequencies. That's also where ANC has originally been invented for. And yeah, the higher upper frequency, the worse it gets. But even there, with other, at least over years, I've experienced better ANC than this. Like, it's totally fine. It works for most cases, but even in an airplane, I tried it on an airplane in case you're asking, I thought these were just okay. Like, I've experienced better on the go, but yeah, with ANC, and it works. It's not great if you walk around the main street or so, like cars still annoying loud, because passive isolation not good. If there's whatever high-pitched noise, yeah, it just comes through because ANC does not do a good job in attenuating high frequencies. So it's okay, like absolutely no complaint. I think for a TWS, it's fine. Like really, I would even describe it as like good-ish. Okay, next point, we have to talk about environmental pass-through. And even that, I would describe as, yeah, totally passable. I did not have any problems with it. It was able to pass through voices and noises from the outside totally fine. It had problems similar with the ANC with wind. So if you're in windy environments, yeah, like I would probably recommend put a hat or something over it so wind does not like interfere too much. But generally, yeah, pass-through just worked. Like if you are groceries or whatever and you just need to hear your environment, like it's totally passable, like absolutely no problem there. It didn't sound too natural though, but again, it does the job, so yeah, really nothing to complain here. And then again, as I said, like wind was a problem, so if you walk on the outside and it's windy, like it is here in Germany at the moment, like it's windy to stormy, not good. I would recommend deactivating ANC just for that, because yeah, it's getting affected by that like a good bit and just in an uncomfortable way. And even if you put wind off, you will still get artifacts from the wind going over the buds. It's, I want to say, as bad as it was with the variations. So really just walking through wind just makes that noise and you're like, don't want to wear it really at that moment. And it's also interfering with music at this point. And then let's talk about the controls, because this surface here is touch sensitive and it worked okay, like starting music, stopping music, skipping tracks, like activating ANC, pass-through, everything just worked fine, like I had no problems with it. And you also can at least personalize the controls, I think, a bit in the options. I did not go out of my way to look up all of the details you can do with them in the app. But there's an app if you want to change things on it. And it has EQ functionality, which is unfortunately pretty rudimentary. Like you can set different profiles for EQ, but that's it. Like they don't even tell you what it does. You can just set profiles and that's basically it. So if you just want an app that has good EQs, yeah, well, this is not the place to go. But there is an app, and I think it also is available outside of the Samsung ecosystem. I think, I'm not entirely sure, I would say, yeah, probably, maybe even on Apple, I don't know. That's something, I'm not an Apple user, so I can't tell you at this point. Could look it up, just too lazy, got to be honest. Okay, next part, individual usage. So if you just have just left or just right, was also totally acceptable. Like I had no problems with it. Just if you just want to use one side, absolutely okay. There's no point of critique there. So next point, varying or bearer recognition also worked. So just flopping it in, like will recognize it, give you an bloop, and yeah, then it will play music. I think it's also supposed to have auto pause and autoplay. But that didn't work too great for me. At least when I removed one side, like it stopped playing sometimes on this side that I removed, sometimes it didn't. And if you remove both, I didn't have the feeling it was pausing my music itself. So it worked okay, like it was fine, like also no problem, but I think it could be a bit more precise here, or a bit more like just more giving me more information like what it does, because really like when I remove both, it just played music on my phone, but these two stopped playing at some point. And then at some point just one played and the other one didn't. Like, it was okay. Like, I have to say, probably they are better, but they are definitely also worse. Okay, next point would be battery life. And these claim up to 8 hours officially, and up to 28 hours with the charging case. So this means these give you additional 20 hours. And in day-to-day life, I think with just ANC on some of the time, I managed like, I don't know, like 6-ish hours or so. So it's definitely good, but not great. And also keep in mind, I usually listen to music on relatively low volume. So if you like your music to be a bit louder, well, will probably also not be close to 8 hours, but more to like 5-ish, 6-ish hours. If you, like me, go to ANC on off, like just put it on off occasionally. So yeah, what else can we talk about? Oh yeah, generally battery life of this case with 20 hours additionally. I think you can get close to that. Like, it managed to be like at least 4 or 5 days additionally with the buds, and I was wearing them a good part of the day for the purpose of review and just general work. So yeah, I think overall battery life is totally acceptable, and the way this charges is USB-C. And I think it also supports wireless charging. I have no wireless charging, I just can't try that, but yeah. I went on the inside, so it's last thing when we talk about smart functionality. The general charging here did work pretty well. The magnets in here and in here are strong enough, so we just flop it in and it just stays. Like, it just flops in, whoop, and it charges, as you can see. So that worked flawlessly. Like, really, this is a good implementation of the, okay, this is the right side, but even funnily enough, also if you flop it here, it also works. So yeah, it charges both sides, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that worked fine and I had no problems with it. So yeah, that's I think pretty much it about what we can talk about smart functionality. So next chapter, and yeah, as Crin already said in his review, the Buds Pro are generally pretty well tuned. So that means in terms of general sound characteristic, the Buds Pro do follow the Harman target pretty closely. And that means like these are generally like U or V-shaped, like slightly, or like, no, like you can call it like very U-shaped or V-shaped, depending on your terms of like definition of it. I think mostly like Harman 2018 or so, they come close to that. And that makes them pretty good because the bass is not interfering too much with the mids. So yeah. Let's go over the frequency response, starting off with treble. So, as usual, extension first. I had the feeling that this extends actually pretty decently. According to Graph, there's a big spike after 10K, and again, my coupler is an IEC 711 coupler, so everything after 10K is not reliable. So I can just tell you there probably isn't a spike somewhere, because it does come off as a bit grainy. It's similar to the TK-ZK wave, just what the wave was like at 9K, and that was also there because sometimes it got a bit also sibilant. But this one doesn't get sibilant, it keeps its graininess. And it's not coming off as like particularly pleasant to me, but also not as too harsh. So there probably isn't spike somewhere after 10K, but it's not too bad. Then mid-treble, and I got to say, mid-treble came off as, yeah, really as well balanced. I did not have the feeling this was too much. It was well controlled. For instance, an EMP blast from Eli Arson or Stitch from Dance of the Dead came off as well balanced, not too much, which other IEMs that are more V-shaped or more U-shaped can be. This was not the case. It was absolutely well tuned there. I had no problems with the treble whatsoever. Yeah, there's a peak at 8K, and yeah, then, as I said, additional spike after 10K. So that overall can lead for some occasionally like tracks having a bit S and F, a tad too sharp. But really it was not such a big problem to me. And in other tracks, for instance, I noted here Blood Brothers from Iron Maiden. I actually even missed a bit of splash and sizzle, which I'm not sure why, because as I said, like with the additional 8K energy can come off as a bit too much, at least for some. For me it didn't, but I can definitely guarantee you some will find that a bit unpleasant. But for me just like even a bit splash and sizzle there, like again a Blood Brother. So it's really, I think, yeah, really like personal here. I find it overall not offensive, but some might be. And when we come to lower treble, and even that I found well balanced, and I had no problems with shout or with the lower treble being pronounced too much. A good example here would be Auto Look from Kavinsky, which can be really, really intense occasionally. And here, vocals just came off as a tad too much, but really, like, it wasn't too offensive. So yeah, hammer and penal gain here working pretty decently, and it doesn't interfere too much. Again, if you don't like lower treble or upper mids being pronounced, can be maybe too much for you, but really I found the balance here pretty nice. And female vocals in all of the Nier Automata album worked just flawlessly in my opinion. And yeah, overall pretty well balanced. And when we come to the mids, and good news everyone, hammer and target mids relatively clean, absolutely no problem. Upper mids well pronounced, well audible mids, and vocals of male, for example in Meteora from Linkin Park, S&M2 from Metallica, yeah, absolutely good mids. I literally have no problem with the mid presentation here whatsoever, they really just worked flawlessly in my opinion. Lower mids also had a good tonality to them, they were not overly pronounced, but not lacking either. So really my usual test after Re-Rain, where I had a pretty pronounced bass guitar, it just was well overall pronounced in the mix, not overly, just worked flawlessly in my opinion. And that already brings me to bass. And yeah, there's a steady rise through the upper bass region, but it still avoids bloating or mushiness, really just again well balanced. And yeah, I think that leads you then to mid bass, which does have an okayish punch, but really nothing to complain here either. Like noted, Near Dark from Dance of the Dead didn't feel like it was hitting hard, but it still was hitting enough for me to still be pleasantly enough. Okay, so yeah, then there's only sub-bass left to talk about, and yeah, according to a graph, it does extend all the way to 20 Hz with a rise, and that generally is pretty preferable for most, and yeah, it does definitively also extend to my ear in the low bass regions. There's just two small problems. First is that it doesn't really have a sub-bass texture to it. So in Interstellar's Mountains, the Buds Pro managed to 2 minutes 14-ish with texture, and until 2:13, and then there was only a note which you can't really point out. So that was not too great, but still totally good. But the second problem here is the bad isolation. So that means without ANC, you will definitively have low space notes just disappear in your mix. And even with ANC, I think it's just not that great in terms of how sub-bass is represented here. Again, for true wireless buds, it is not a real problem, but as real audiophile would tell you, it's probably not that great for them. I find it totally passable, just as I said, problem, passive isolation, and yeah, missing texture definitely can be in downer, but for 120 euro at the moment, I mean, what are we talking about? 220, I would say no, but 120, it's okay. And that brings me to the other part of technical performance, and that is soundstage, layering, and imaging. And yeah, I mean, it's a bad, right? I didn't expect much, and it really doesn't win any prizes here. Soundstage is not good, but not terrible either. It's, I would say, even below average. Layering is usual 3 blobs, so there's also not much going on there. But imaging, well, yeah, it does decent. It does separate most instruments well enough for the price. And I didn't have any complaints in, soundstage layering imaging overall. It's not bad. I don't expect much, so for these expectations, it just fulfilled them without too much of hassle. Besides, soundstage being a bit below average, or below average. And then, last chapter before we come to the verdict, separation, dynamics, and coherence. So, first thing, coherence. Yeah, it's single dynamic driver, absolutely okay. I did not have any problems with the coherence here. Dynamics, I mean, it was acceptable. I did not expect much, and I didn't get that much. So also totally okay here. General tonality and timbre, I also didn't find it to be unnatural. It just came off as, natural to me. Not metallic, not woody or plasticky, anything. Just totally okay in timbre. Really no problem whatsoever. So, what else can we talk about? Oh yeah, generic detail retrieval. Yeah, it's a but, alright. Like, I did not expect much in terms of detail and also didn't get that much. But it's totally fine for like day-to-day varying. I would not worry about like this not being resolving enough. It's totally okay. I think some like $50-ish IEMs will probably still beat it in terms of resolution. But generally, like, it's in TWS. Like, you don't get these because you want the best sound. You get these because you want an overall convenient package. And that's definitely what they deliver. So yeah, just for original asking price of 220 euros or so, that would be a hard pass for me. Like 220, I would then expect like to get pricing of like 90 to 100 IEMs, and that's definitely, it's not up there. So for the moment, 120 euros or so, absolutely no complaints in terms of detail or like anything. It's fine. And that brings me to the last chapter, verdicts. So I think the best thing that we can say here is, tell me why. Samsung, why you did this? Why did you ruin your otherwise totally fine buds with an horribly short nozzle, with the additional knob in the nozzle to prevent tips from being on, and with the generally like chunky shape? Like, it's somewhat passable if you have big ears, but as soon as you have a deeper ear, or as soon as you have a like thin, small ear canal or anything else, like, these are not going to be for you. And really, this is one of those designs where I just don't know, why don't you go for the semi-custom designs that most IEM producers actually are using? They're actually so much better in terms of how well they fit most ears, but then somehow TWS producers still think, you know, we make it bean-shaped. Beans. That's how ears look like. Beans. Oh yeah, great. So really, like, it does a totally fine job in whatever it does if you get over the fit. Like, ANC is totally fine, pass-through is fine, battery life is fine. The footprint of the charging case is actually pretty small, so you can just flop it in your purse. It's really totally okay. And even the lack of HD codec. Well, I mean, there's Samsung HD codec, which only works with Samsung devices, so that ain't too great, but generally it also didn't add anything to me. So overall, yeah, it's totally fine TWS. It's just is ruined by Samsung thinking, you know, nozzle. We don't need a long nozzle. And you need this additional knob thing, because why not? So yeah, I can only tell you, if you have big ears, these will probably fit you. And if you like Harman Target, they are a good choice. But if you have medium-sized ears, if you have like small ear canal or whatever, these will just not fit. It will be really difficult to get them in your ears. And that's why I also can't recommend them. Critical is right, they are well tuned. But if we see the big picture of these, I just can't recommend them. Like, fit is just not good enough for most people. So really, I can only tell you, if you know you have big ears, or if you know like this shape will be fitting you, maybe. But for all other people, find another pair of buds. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have feedback, if you have criticisms, just leave a comment, please. And with that, Donspektor out.